Hello, welcome to the August Designer Chat,
Hey.
Studio Chat. What do we call these?
Let's go with design chat.
Yeah, it's our first Tuesday of the month Design Chat. It is a Tuesday, but it's not the first Tuesday of the month.
The Warp Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a Warp Tuesday. It's a leap.
Leap Tuesday.
A leap and a skip Tuesday. It is, what's the date? 16th or so? The middle of August.
Yeah.
And we had to move our Designer Chat because you and I were both at Gen Con.
Yeah, we were. And, we were back home, but I don't think any human should be expected to work the Tuesday after Gen Con.
Yeah, that wasn't gonna happen. And it was our first show that we both did together since the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, because you went to Unplugged one time. What was I doing?
I know, I didn't go to Unplugged. We did Unplugged last year, but it was operations only.
That's right.
And then I did Play Modena, but that wasn't a show I worked. I got to be a visitor. But this was Gen Con.
Yeah,
this
Gen
felt more Gen Con than some Gen Cons.
More Gen Con than Gen Con.
It was a huge show. I think attendance was really good. I mean, I think on day one, most everybody I knew who was working it said, well, this seems like almost as busy as it used to be.
I'm sorry, I got to get the chat
That's
up.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, now I know the audio's working.
Yeah, that's good.
But it was a great show. We saw tons of people. I mean, I think one of the things that I love about Gen Con, and we've been having this conversation about like why we do shows, is we just get to see just so many of the folks who are back in the games.
I think like 40 or 50 parties walked up to me and said, we own everything, and I love what you do. Thank you.
And that was it.
Yeah, that was the whole exchange.
Just nothing but positive feedback. And I had to, Kyle wasn't able to make it to the show, and so after the show was over, I made sure to call him, and the main thing I wanted to underline was, I just want you to get some of the good feelings that the whole staff got. I mean, the shows are always kind of energizing.
Yep.
We did a hilarious corporate team builder organized by Brooke, where we had to face off in Indy at Chef JJ's, where we were given a big box of produce and a bunch of unmarked spices, and we had to prepare essentially like a 5-course, 6-course meal.
Yep.
It was hilarious. I really enjoyed that.
Which I left in my hotel fridge.
It's all right. That's a little gift for the next
person.
For the next person.
Here's a salad you don't eat.
I love it. And then, just something about setting up. I mean, I think one of the things I love about the working in games is that sometimes you end up doing very odd jobs. And my favorite odd job is setting up a booth, which is very much like high school stage crew.
Right.
It has a funny, like almost camping mentality. It's a little bit like working in broadcast. We're all getting ready to do a show, and then you get to walk around and see everybody else's, setups.
I have very fond memories of how like crisp and blue and like the perfect cloudy, like the perfect puffy little clouds. The first time I loaded up, so we don't do this anymore. We're spoiled now. But the first time we have to bring a van into the staging yard. It's this complicated thing. You have to go. There's a draft, and you have to go to this other place half mile away from the convention center, rally your van. They give you a number and a time frame when to get there and deliver. And then you have to go deliver. And I had this hand cart loaded with possibly 300 vasts, and I remember very fondly remember pushing it up the ramp, entering the show, and being like, I'm going to sell these vasts. And I did. And and it was every time that comes back, every time I'm working too hard unloading inventory.
Right. Well, and we had a funny, every show always has its like little snafus, and we had a really good one.
Yeah.
We had a lost pallet. And it was it wasn't a pallet, it was a crate.
It was our crate.
And it was the crate that had all of the booth stuff, the desk, the banner, the towers, everything we needed was in that box. And thankfully, we knew that it had arrived.
Yes.
But the person responsible for getting it from the convention center to our booth had said, look, it's already been checked in. Somebody already said that it was delivered correctly. And we said, well, we don't have it. So what do you suggest? And they said, well, it's somewhere on the floor.
This is many conversations you're summarizing.
Oh, yeah. This was a mini hour back and forth spearheaded.
Because I delivered it to Atlas. All the crates went to Atlas's booth on row 14. And then many conversations later, because we walked over there and saw if it was there, and we couldn't find the crate. And so what it turned out when we found it was that someone had written on the note, it was supposed to say our booth number their booth number 1401, and the 0 and the 1 were crowded and turned into 142, and so it was in row 1, sitting next to some rando's booth.
Well, we had this funny challenge of, okay, we know the crate is somewhere in the hall, and for folks who haven't been to Gen Con, it's this massive, massive hall, mini football fields, but it's a convention hall, so it's all these little aisles and kind of little storefronts, and everybody picked kind of a different cardinal direction. And we just split up.
Yeah,
and we were searching, and Ted won the prize. He found it.
Yeah. I was like 30 seconds behind him.
Well,
yeah, but he got it.
Ted still won the prize.
Yep.
And then we were able to scramble and get everything together. But it was a great show.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun. Got to show folks stuff we're working on. We played some games, and it's always nice. Some of our staff is remote, and so Gen Con ends up being like a little bit like a company retreat too. It's like an important component.
I'm just reading the questions.
Oh, okay, that's fine. You can read away. Favorites. I'll say some of my favorite games that I got to play at Gen Con. New stuff. I demoed a lot of things. I really tried. My schedule was like weird. It was very, very packed this year. But I usually was free from 4 to 6 in the afternoons. And usually I'd have dinners and things to get to, so I couldn't like dawdle too much, but I was able to get like a demo or two in every day. I played a lot of weird stuff. I really enjoyed, I played a demo for a game called Sea Salt and Paper, which I really liked. It was quite cute.
What's that about?
It's a little one deck card game where you're basically kind of playing a pick one draft, and then you can try to end the game, but then is your hand going to be the highest hand? So it's a little bit like a climbing game in that regard, but it's got some funny bits to it, and it has a really lovely, very simple presentation, just photographs of origami and different kinds of paper crafts, and so it had a really stunning look to it.
Cool.
That was probably my favorite.
When do we get that?
Demo. I don't know. I think it comes out in the fall at Essen.
Okay.
But it was lovely, and let's see, I had fun at the consignment store. One night, my brother and I went and rifled through the consignment store, which is all the stuff that fails to meet reserve at the auction, gets kicked off to this little store, which is just piles of games. It's just like a flea market.
Sure.
And it reminds me of the BGG Con flea market, which is my favorite event at BGG Con because it's just chaotic and exciting. And I found all sorts of things, including a very cheap copy of Feudum, which I then learned how to play. And so I can now say that I know how to play Feudum.
Oh, you can teach me now.
I can teach you.
Because I haven't played it yet.
It's maybe kind of good.
Is it?
That's my
that is not the consensus.
No, well, I think it has its fans, right?
Yeah.
My attitude about Feudum fundamentally is if you go into the game expecting like a Euro, you'll be so frustrated by the nonsense that you'll have a horrible time.
Right.
But if you like put on your little Robin Hood hat and you get used to saying the word haversack a lot, and you really accept that this is going to be kind of like a crazy, weird design, then it's sort of fun.
What happened to the haversack?
As an item?
As an item.
Yeah, I don't know. We stopped being serfs.
So we fell out of fashion.
It fell out with serfdom.
So I just bought a lot of little games.
Sure.
And that was my goal. And then Jason Anarchy, I had in my head a mental list of how much space I had in my suitcase, and I was like, I'm there. And then Jason Anarchy at the end of the show walked up and handed me a game with a 4-letter title. So that an offense right there, and then I had to figure out how to get it home. So we ended up
publication or for
no, it's done. It's done. Yeah, and so I ended up packing one of our Marauder boxes with the intention of going to FedEx that morning and shipping it home. And then we just ran out of time, so we took it to the airport
and checked it
as Ted's luggage, and they didn't even bat an eye. They're like, whatever.
No. Coming from Gen Con, that's how it goes.
It didn't get searched. So
it's great. You don't have to open up the tape. Sounds like a hassle.
It sounds like and opening all those games. So, but yeah, I picked up. So I was really impressed with this company out of nowhere. They're a division of Spin Master.
Yeah.
Big Potato? Is that the name?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, Big Potato. Well, I'm sorry if you're watching and I messed up your company name. They made this game with the post office, licensed game, post office game. We're picking up, delivering mail across the country. Boy, did they have a fun booth. Did you see it?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, so I asked them, and they got a fellow to bring in, they got the post office to bring in, they refurbished a truck. There was postal carriers at the show that were like, I've never seen a truck in this good a shape. This, I'm kind of mad now because it this is something we could have.
Yeah.
So they brought in a truck, and they were selling, if you asked them to buy a game, the guy would just go over to the back of the truck, open up the truck. That was worth the price of admission right there. And then he'd sell you a game off the back of the truck, and it was pretty cute. So it was really cool. Oink was there. I liked seeing them. Yep. I just saw a lot of my friends. Like a lot of the publishers that we talked to, like Jason Anarchy. So.
I got the Oink game about diamonds.
Yeah.
Where you have to figure out if the diamonds are the same or if one of them has been swapped.
Yes.
And I think it's too hard.
Oh,
I think all the diamonds are only off by about 1 millimeter from each other, and I think it might be too difficult, at least for me.
So Nick showed me at lunch Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I literally can't read them.
Yes.
So my eyesight's too bad. I was like, I cannot read this card. I won't play that game.
Other highlights of the con for me were snap ships. I had a great time hanging out at their booth, and then I got a bunch for my kids, and we played in our time off. So usually after Gen Con, the whole studio goes home and rests for a few days. And I because I'm already in Indiana, I go see my folks. And we played so much snap ships. I had a great time. I think I just want to go buy a bunch more snap ships for my kids to play with. Just one of the more fun toys that we played recently. And then they got to come join me at Gen Con for 2 hours at the very end of my last shift on Friday. My wife came to Indy to pick me up, and my children were very excited about the idea of a big room filled with people wearing costumes, and so they dressed up like ninjas.
Nice.
And
I missed them. I had to walk away. Yeah.
We looked for you. We couldn't find you. So
sorry.
they're going to work on their ninja skills.
Okay.
But we had a great time. I learned that about an hour and a half is as long as you want to have a bunch of children on the floor. Everybody was in tears by the end.
Yeah.
They wanted toys. They didn't want toys. They were tired. They wanted to go home. And then a friend of mine from Indianapolis came up to me and said hi, because they knew that we were going to be there with our kids. And they said, why don't we go outside and eat peach cobbler under the giant robot?
Sure.
And that's what we did, and it was a fabulous.
What if we ate peach cobbler under the robot?
And she had packed these little tubs, these little Tupperwares of peach cobbler, and that was a lovely end to the show.
That's amazing.
And the other thing about Gen Con, which I did this year, which I'd always wanted to do, is I used a lot more of the Indie Bike Share. Yeah. Which is great. And for folks who are in Gen Con and are frustrated at eating at the same Steak and Shake over and over again, Indy has lots of great restaurants that are like a 5 to 10 minute bike ride from the convention center. Right. And the bike share is very easy to use. And the thing about Indianapolis is it has many lanes and very few cars. Sure. So it's very easy to bike out of the zone. So I had a great time doing that, and a fun time kind of exploring parts of Indy I don't normally explore. Good. So yeah, good show. Good show. Yeah. And for any of you watching, thanks for coming by and saying hi to us.
I felt like no one was crabby, like they usually. Yeah. Like people were pacing themselves better, or it wasn't as crowded, or I don't know what happened. We sold everything, so it wasn't like we weren't busy.
Yeah, we were busy the whole time, but it felt very.
But no one was came out and demand, like one guy. We had one guy that was a little bit demanding, but normally you have 3 or 4 blow-ups a day at a booth. And we didn't see anything like that.
No, and the only in-demand item I wanted was the Great Western Trail expansion, where they only had 30 to give each day. Sure. And so there was one day where I stood in line and waited for it, and it was the most mannerly, friendly line. Yeah. And that was a hotter item where I did see people running to the line. Once they got in the line, they queued up, no one was salty.
Everything was good. I'm just going to answer some questions off the chat here. The buildings are all from Michael's, and they're birdhouses. Yes. That my darling wife painted up for the Giant Root set. And then the meeples, of course, are from the Giant Root set, which we used one show, and it's too hard on our knees, so we need to we need to re-strategize that.
I don't know if we've ever really shown these, but this is a solid block of wood. Yeah. It's imagine a children's block that was this size. It's quite heavy.
It's quite dense. It's a dense wood. It should have been made out of foam. And I've even, some of our trade partners, I think Simon and Madigo, have suggested that they would make a foam version for us if we ever want.
The thing that I learned when Nick and I went to Essen the year after that, and we saw a lot of jumbo sets of games that were on display, but they were usually twice scale, 2 scale. And that was a great setup because it was like eye-catching, but also you could move the pieces with just like a couple hands, like picking up and shoveling them around. But yeah, that's where all those are from.
Yeah.
This is our like new studio room, still very much under construction.
Yeah. I don't have I can't read the questions.
Yeah,
that's why I'm on my phone. And we had a little snafu also I was trying to fix also in the studio, but yes, that's what I do explain why I'm on my phone.
Yeah, well, we're still figuring out exactly how we want to have things set up. So like we have good audio now. Hopefully it's sounding nice and good lights.
Someone said it's a little bit desynced just now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the audio and the video are a little bit
strange. That shouldn't happen. But we'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
But we'll get some better cameras in here soon. That's kind of the next step. And then we're going to be like rearranging a lot of things in this room. Because we have this kind of funny, we're in the basement right now of our new building. And we have this quasi-divided 2-suite office.
We should get rid of this wall.
Yeah, or you know what we could do? We could put a window in it. And then we could have like the editor booth. And then we could have a full room for studio.
That's right.
So there's some fun options, but there'll be things that are probably going to wait for, other days when we have more time. Okay.
That's amazing.
Next thing.
Let's do design chat.
Let's do design chat.
I mean, we're only 20 minutes in already.
Well, I know, but we had Gen Con report, and Gen Con's a big event for us because almost everybody goes to the show, and it's logistically complicated.
I would love to just talk for 20 minutes about why.
About why what?
About why we're going?
Do you want to talk? I mean, we can talk about it.
We can talk for a few minutes. It might be too much sausage getting made for this.
I mean, but isn't that what this studio chat's about? I can talk about Gen Con.
So the question on my mind has been, and it's like, for morale, it's great.
Sure. Yep.
But it also is a lot of wear and tear on this 47-year-old person and loading up and unloading. And it's so the first year that we really every year that we had sales up until like the big root sale, it was a significant part of our income.
Yep.
Yeah, and like I would say possibly 10% of our income the year that we released root with that big sale. And our sales were great this year. They weren't that shows. That can never happen again. I mean, we literally couldn't even get that much material we had to like rent and move stuff in every day. So at this point, it represents less than 1% of our revenue every year. And so the question is, what do you do with a show now? Because I'm not saying it isn't worth it to get that money, but it's also a lot of work relative to the other ways that we can make money.
And it monopolizes time. I mean, really, it's the opportunity cost of that show, right?
Yep.
Because almost everyone on staff is going to be at it, and the people who don't go to it often aren't going to be working at anything close to full capacity because they don't have the rest of the staff supporting them.
Right.
And so...
And we took a week off.
Right, and then we're going to take a week to recover. And so it's like, okay, well, are you going to take 2 weeks, of the 50 in the working year?
Right.
Are you going to take 2 weeks and make 10% of your revenue? Well, obviously, it's a great
you do that. Yep.
Yeah, but if it's 1%, then it starts to seem...
And not even 1%.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I'm, it's just because we reacted. We did what we did the previous year, and we kept building on that success. But at some point, I was like, we need to figure out what we're going to do with this show. And like, is it just for marketing? Are we continuing selling things? I mean, maybe we get new customers. Maybe that's a way to think about it.
And this was the first Gen Con, I think. Well, I mean, that might not be true, but it's, we stopped doing demos.
Right.
And demos are the kind of thing that is like obvious to do for a lot of game companies in a lot of situations, but they are exhausting, especially for the types of games that we make. A demo, you talked about, boy, everybody seemed kind of happy this year. Well, like your staff wasn't running demos.
Yeah, they weren't crabby.
I mean, and demos are exhausting. They're totally exhausting. Especially, it's one thing too that, I think the COVID protocols that were put in place, the mask wearing, you hardly noticed. I mean, everybody was wearing the mask, it was great. But you hardly noticed it. It didn't affect your con experience at all to be wearing a mask, right? But in demos where you're talking constantly, it does. It's horrible. And so I think, okay, we don't need to do demos. We do need to do certain kinds of sales, but we might be changing a little bit of our Gen Con footing in the future. Yeah,
so that's what we need to figure out. So if you want to know how the sausage is made, that's the thing, and I have to think about it. So let's skip what you've been playing. Or do you want to do it quick?
I don't know. I've been playing lots of stuff.
I've been playing Dark Tower. I played Dark Tower, and I played. What did I play this weekend?
Okay, give me your fast one. You played Mystic Mischief.
Yeah, that was it.
I follow you on Twitter. I know.
Mythic Mischief. Yes, that was it. Yeah,
not
that's what
Mystic.
that's what I've been playing. And then yeah, we're on scenario 49 of the crew.
You're right at the end.
I'm right at the end.
Very fun.
Yep. What have you been playing?
Land, Air, and Sea. I've been playing I'm playing Feudum, which I think is Feudum to me is 3 good parts, 1 bad part.
Okay.
And I think it's worth playing. And I think it might even be good. I don't know if I have the patience for it to enter regular rotation.
Sure.
I've been playing a lot of Blood on the Clock Tower. I've been playing a lot of Carnegie, which is still, it's like my surprise hit of the year. I thought it was going to be a nonsensical modern Euro. I think it's actually really good.
I like how you earn the privileges.
Yeah.
That little board, that little expanding.
A little board, yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's just really, I think it also, it's gotten some flack for its theming. I think its theming is very, very smart. I think it's a genuinely very interesting, both on a mechanical level and on a thematic level. And that is both for the history that it shows and the history it erases. I think the whole package kind of makes sense. So I'm really enjoying that. And then quick swerve, I've been getting back into more complicated hex and counter war games lately.
No.
And I've been playing Salerno 43, which is amazing. It's so good. It's just been a long time since I've like gotten thrill from like looking up a value on a CRT.
Yeah.
But it's really good, and I am in the process of learning Empire of the Sun right now, which I've wanted to get on the table for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, so
You're committed.
I have it. It's in my basement, ready to go right now. But that's been kind of like a little fun aside that just. You know what happened? I've tried to get back in the practice of just like learning games.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, when you're working on a project, you kind of, at least I will like lock all the hatches and be like, okay, I'm only going to play things related to my game. I'm only going to work on my game. And you kind of forget how to learn games. So when you open up a rule book, you're like, where's the video? I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had the same experience with like when we were playing roll camera, where I needed to refresh some of the rules. So I opened up the rulebook and I was like, did I just watch the video? And then I said, no, I can learn it. I can just sit and read this. And what's happened is now that I've gotten back in the practice of like trying to be a little more current in my plays, it has inspired me to try to learn harder things again.
Okay, and well, maybe I'll take this as a cue from you. Then I'll dig back into
Magic Realm, not so far away.
I have a lot of things in shrink right now because the time marches on and Kickstarters keep getting delivered. So
yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that's what we've been playing. The short version.
Short version. All right. Well, we got some studio news here. Ahoy.
Ahoy in pre-order right now. We'll be shipping as soon as we have it to ship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all that stuff is like in transit.
Yeah, it is on the water.
Yeah, it's on the water.
Yeah.
It's on the water of the water. For folks who did not go to Gen Con, it was wonderful to see people playing it in and around the con, to see people talking about it. It was so fun to pitch.
Yep.
I think it's actually maybe one of my favorite games to like do the quick demo pitch that we've published. I like wanted to be at the Ahoy table selling Ahoy. And it sold very well. We didn't know if we'd have it at the show, which is why we didn't really announce anything. And there was like, well, we got to air freight it. We don't know if it's going to make it. Okay, we'll just play it quiet. And then if we happen to get it, great.
Right.
And then we were lucky enough to have some, and it we sold through all those copies, and people would come up to us the next day saying like, wow, played 3 games last night.
Cool.
I played 2 games last night. So if you're interested in Ahoy, you can pre-order it now. And we have just released the TTS mod.
Yeah, today.
So it's now up. So if you want to play Ahoy right now, this very instant, or maybe after the design stream, you can do that.
Or do both. I think you can do both, yeah. And the rules are out too then.
Yep. The rules are up and out. And then I think rules are being posted to BGG. We will eventually have links on the TTS page. I need to put those through. So I think that like the TTS page for the game doesn't have the rule book link on the page, but within the mod, the rules are there.
Sure.
So one can find it.
One can find it. Yeah, that's really exciting. I also enjoyed. I didn't have any idea how I was going to pitch it because I've played it.
Sure.
I didn't like work on the design as much as you and Nick. I mean, I had suggestions, and then all of a sudden I was like, it was that counter was empty, and I was like, well, I gotta figure out my pitch here. So I walked up and did it, and I really enjoyed it. So I hadn't really talked about Oath too much either.
Sure.
And so that was I got it turned on. I got it turned on. Yeah, it took me a couple. I was like, sorry. Probably whoever was first at the booth for me talking about oaths,
Like-
probably a lame pitch.
Doesn't matter. We sold out all the oath we brought.
Yeah.
I think Ahoy has this like fun thing when you're pitching it, because whenever you're pitching to people, you have all the pieces in front of you.
Yeah.
And then your goal is basically in a minute to sell them on the game.
Right.
And for a game like Oath, that can be really hard because there's a lot of different things to talk about.
Yeah.
And there are different strategies. And with Ahoy, what I found is I would say like, look, very asymmetric game. If you've got a group that wants to play root, or like you want to play root, but your group doesn't really want to, Ahoy might be light enough.
Yeah.
I kept calling it a root you can bring home to your folks.
Yeah.
But in terms of the mechanics, I would say, okay, you're going to place dice to move your ships around. Here's how the Bluefin Squadron works. Here's how the Rebellion works a little differently. That's like 30 seconds. And then I say, and the Smuggler, delivering their thing increases the value of the regions for the other two players. And usually right when I got to the point, they were like, yes. They like saw, because you like want the player or the potential player to connect the dots in a way that is going to make them feel excited, creative. And Ahoy's pitch has that built in. And I will say, we also sold a lot of Fort over the show, and I love Fort to death. Fort's a harder game to pitch than Ahoy. Ahoy like is grabby, and I think Fort is very approachable, but it doesn't collapse itself easily into like the 1 minute format. And it was fun because I'd never worked a show where we had Fort in the same way as Oath. I got to kind of like see the games in the wild and talk to them. And that's what, it's funny, that's been an important part of our craft for a long time that we kind of like lost during COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, you went to a lot of shows with Crystal Caverns.
Yep.
And would respond to feedback, and that was an important part of the creative process, not just the marketing process.
Literally sold a Vast on an elevator. So it was the elevator pitch.
Yeah, it was the elevator. You have it until the lobby floor.
Until I mean, maybe he said he'd come buy one, so I think he did. All right, so Ahoy, Marauder is on its way to retail.
Yep.
And with all the goodies that come with, or all the goodies from
no
Marauder.
No promos.
No promos. Yeah, all the hireling packs are going to retail, and the landmark pack, and we have a lot of SKUs for Root. Sorry about that, everybody. And so that's coming along. We had one of our best weeks of selling at the company ever, right for Gen Con. So it was because all the orders from that came in.
Behind her back.
Yep. So.
And the Marauder stuff, some stores will of course have already had it if they were Kickstarter backer stores.
Yeah.
But this is like the general distribution release.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's coupled with more.
That's a good thing to say. Yes.
Yeah. And it's coupled with more Root Core.
Yep.
So if you've been looking for a copy of Root Core at your local store and they haven't been able to get it, that should fix itself pretty soon.
I'm sorry if you're watching. Watching the chat on your phone isn't working because I keep going out of the chat and coming back in, and so I'm not seeing if I'm not looking directly at my phone or have it open, I'm not seeing
it's real goofy. It's fine.
Sorry.
We'll do our best.
We're doing our best. All right. So
if there are critical questions, Kaylee, I empower you to just read them to us.
Or Brooke, if you're watching from your office, you could just run downstairs and burst into the room and shout them at us. Yes.
Yeah, we're still working on our stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Marauder release coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
I will say too, at Gen Con, we had everything that we've ever done pretty much in stock.
Yeah.
Everything that was in print.
That's pretty noteworthy. I think it's really easy for someone that doesn't understand to appreciate how complicated that was to have everything there. We had Riverfolk. It just sold out really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but to have every item, and it's not because we've been sitting on a ton of inventory that's going stale now. It is, we just got it all to arrive at the right moment, and so we hooked it up. So I was pretty good to see. I was pretty glad.
Yeah, it was amazing. And of course, the other big story from the studio, the reason we've been so busy this past 6 weeks is the move to the new office.
Mm-hmm.
And when you saw us last, the day before we left for Gen Con, basically, or the week before, we did an Ahoy live stream. And that live stream was done, basically like a day or two after we were unpacking.
Yeah.
The day of the live stream, I was like goofing around in the crawl space, like trying to run Ethernet into the stream room. So it was a little rough,
It was a little rough.
A little rough.
I made some mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Well, and the move is generally fine. I think like it's a complicated move.
Yeah.
I mean, where I felt the complication, Patrick, was where when we moved all the electronics ourselves, and I came downstairs and thought like, oh my god, we have like 15 computers
Just set up. Yeah.
right, and that means like we've got, I don't know, 25 monitors probably, and every computer has their own box of auxiliary, cables and things.
Yep.
And just laying out that, I thought like, oh, this isn't just like 4 folks who can pack their stuff in the back of a Subaru and like move from one little office suite to another. Like this is a company, and I think we are now getting to the point where we almost have enough stuff set up to like be a normal business. We're almost there.
We're flirting with being a normal business. Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, just from the creative side, we're like currently only about half the offices can use the printer.
Yeah.
That should be fixed on Friday. And the 3D printer isn't set up yet, but that will probably be done this week. I've been resuming ARC's playtests, and everything is kind of like coming back together. And so I think we thought originally that the move would be sort of like a little 2-week hiccup. It ended up taking a lot longer, but also the space is, I think, much more wonderful than anyone had guessed. Like it is so nice to be able to run a playtest, a loud playtest in my office, to not be able to hear an equally loud meeting that might be happening in your office, and to not upset someone who is playtesting on another table or people who might be eating lunch in the lunchroom.
Right. Yep.
And so previously the office could do like 2 things at once.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe 3.
Yeah.
And now we could have like 8 or 9 active.
I can play test in my office now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So I mean, it's so nice. And we do have a little bit for folks who live in the Twin Cities. We now have like almost a public facing room a multi-purpose room that we can use to resume things like Wednesday night playtests and other things like that, which I'd like to get that started as things settle down. Not yet.
Post Sebastian, I think, oh boy, Wednesday night. It's gonna be interesting, but we should be able to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
I like how, I mean, it's just the move let me get rid of clutter, kind of redesign my space a little bit, how I work. So I'm pretty excited about that. And the time during the hiccup, I didn't lose much productivity, I felt kind of refreshed when I got back. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm tired.
Yeah, I know.
But we're here now, and that's what matters. Let me think of any other stray office things. Oh, one funny quirk to our office is that we are very close to the Minnesota State Fairgrounds. And when those fairgrounds start, we will not be in regular office. We'll be work from home for a week and a half or so, whatever the length of the
That's 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. So that we'll be work from home for a little bit. And I'm hoping that I get at least some of the projects I'm working on, I get them in a spot where I could like invite Patrick over to my house, or we can find another spot to go to and actually like do some play tests and do some work.
Oh, nice patio.
Yeah, even when we're nice. Yeah, you bet. Play the patio.
All right. Well, let's talk about. I hear that you're working on this thing called ARCs.
I'm working on it.
Tell me about. I haven't played ARCs in a while. So
tell me about ARCs. ARCs is in a really interesting spot. So basically, what's been happening in ARCs land is we had the Kickstarter version of the game, and we got lots and lots and lots of feedback and comments about the Kickstarter version that just told me a lot about the game. The Kickstarter version was very interesting because I think for people on staff, especially folks who like didn't quite like dial into Oath's wavelength, the Kickstarter version of ARCs was really exciting because it was so much simpler. And so like I know you and Kyle and then also a few other folks on staff really, really liked that particular version. I liked it too. And then when we were reading reviews from folks and reading comments and just kind of tracking it, it was clear that there were some people in our audience who like wanted it to be faster, wanted it to be more like Oath or things like that. And so I was thinking about that as we were doing the editing of the game, and we made little changes, and then eventually I thought, okay, well maybe I can like have my cake and eat it too, and make this kind of scenario system. And so I spent most of June and July working on building out these 3 scenarios that would come in the box, and they would allow you to play different parts of like the history of ARCs within ARCs. and it like 70% worked.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, what I was finding, and this is actually a larger problem I have with scenario-driven games that is just an outstanding question, is I think that what happens is sometimes the scenarios stop a good game from becoming great.
Sure.
Because you're holding back, well, I don't want that mechanism in the game because that's for scenario 3.
Right, yeah.
And so what you end up with is like these little like half game experiences that if you zoom out and look at the whole thing, it can work fine. But that's not how most people are going to experience the game. And so as I was working on the scenarios, I started becoming a little dissatisfied with them. I think they were, I just felt like I was robbing good ideas for myself to make the scenarios all different enough to have like, you know, a good value. So over the past 3 weeks, I decided to sort of take a little bit of a break from the game and just think about it as, I don't know, I wanted to find like a different way of thinking about how the game did victory points and how and this is all for the small game stuff. And so I worked on that, and I'm in the process of evaluating that now, and I think it is finally suggesting a kind of way forward, which we are still in testing, so I can't say too much about it. But basically what ended up happening, and this is like, I'm really bringing you guys to the present because this is true of this morning, is I looked at ARCs and said like, okay, for the small version of ARCs, there are fundamentally 3 different ways this can look. There's a version of the game that is very arcadey, very fast, very clean, pretty simple. There's a version of the game that is scenario driven. And then there's a version of the game that's very like Paxy. And I think in looking at the balance of those 3 versions, my inclination is I kind of want to go back to the Kickstarter version with all the lessons I learned over the summer and punch up the game in some very strategic ways, in very precise ways, to try to get some of that good world building and some of the good emergent gameplay and entanglement into the core game without building it out to too much of its own thing. Because I can't have small, like the base set arcs, be more complicated and thorny than the campaign game.
Right.
So now while that's been happening, I've been working on the world building, Kyle's been working on the art, I've been fleshing out all the different campaign plot lines, and all that stuff is going really well and has been building up. So I'm in this very interesting development place, which I don't think I've ever been in, which is that I have 4 arcs. I have a ton of content, like more content. There's more content right now for arcs than it's maybe like a third as large as Oath's total content, or like half. But there are still some outstanding core questions about the design. And so I'm in this very, very funny place where I feel like I have all these colors and I'm getting to like, just sort of choose how I want it to look. So it's been, you know, I think Nick, I was talking to Nick this morning when we were working on it, is that he said that we were at this funny spot where it wasn't about modeling. It wasn't about building out the math or even building out content. It's entirely just taste.
Sure.
Which version do I think is like the best version of the game? And that usually doesn't happen. I often branch my games, but I never go back to the other branch. And this is the first time where I'm like, there are kind of 3 ways to do this, and I'm figuring out which one I think is going to be the best.
Are you gonna be okay?
Yeah, I think so. But it's a lot, and
I know you don't do that.
Well, yeah, no, yeah. This is just not. This isn't really how I normally work. It's sort of a fluke that this happened at all. But it's sort of exciting, and I think I'm having to just ask myself really hard questions about who's going to play this game and why they're going to play it, as opposed to not thinking about those questions at all. And so it's kind of a fun space to be. So the game's in a good place. What I would say, and this is the quick version of all of this, I really want to release a new version of the core game, and then I really want to release the campaign game to you all. And they will be released the moment they're ready. For the core game, I would guess that, you know, I was hoping to release it like now. I think I just want a few more weeks to work on it. I want to wait until it's really, really stable. So probably another month before the core game's up and running in a public-facing way. And then the campaign game will be sometime after that. So, you know, it's all still scooting along, but I would say about 2 months out of my original schedule. And if you, for any of you who watched the design chat I did about scheduling in ARCs, you'll note that like I talked about how oftentimes in a design, you kind of build in 1 to 3 months of padding because you know you're going to have to take some delays. I'm using that padding right now because I really want to make sure it's solid. And it was nice too to go to Gen Con and to hear myself talking about Root and Oath and Ahoy and thinking about how I'm going to talk about arcs.
Right.
It's very helpful and it does a lot of work to like refocus.
Your brother, when he was when he got deep into the Oath pitch, he would do like, this is the reaction to Root. And I was like, okay. Yeah, but it is. Yeah.
Drew sold, like, he sold so many copies of Oath. He did so good.
Yeah. Josh, yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'm answering Slack messages on them. Cool. I should probably play it when you jump back.
Yeah. I'm trying to play it daily, and then after today's test. So today's test was really interesting. So I played the most paxy version of arcs I've ever made. I mean, really, like with a victory point system that is a little bit of a riff on like Pax Ren Pax Renaissance's victory condition that Josh Yearsley helped kind of configure. And we like played that version, and it was interesting because we played it yesterday. And at the end of the playtest, I said, well, this is a very interesting game. And it's doing really cool things, but I don't know if I like it. And instead of changing anything about the design, I just want to play it again.
Sure.
And today I played it again with a few small modifications, and my takeaway was, well, this is also still a very interesting game, fundamentally interesting, but I don't think it's the right way forward.
Put it on the shelf for later.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do basically is I might even boot up the 3D printer and print a full second ARCS kit, and I just want to play this other branch and then the version that I just made and just really have them both in my head and think about which way is the right way to go. Because they're both workable, but they are quite different.
This is about the time I tell you about the clone I have of you.
Oh yeah.
So you can work on too.
Yeah, thank you. Good. Oh, I could use one right now. So that's ARCS. In general, things are going really well with the design. It remains a project that I am like having fun working on and is very interesting. It feels like it responds to work on Root and work on Oath in ways that I'm finding really generative, but that are also challenging, where sometimes I'll like play a game of ARCS and be like, okay, I have to like just have some quiet time for a day or two to like think about what the problem is there a problem at all, things like that. But the thing that, Patrick, you often tell me, and that I try to take very seriously, is that like our priority is to make really good games. And that's so much more important than anything else
timeline
that we're working on. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's about making good games and about doing things that aren't going to stress anyone out.
Right.
And so I try to take that advice to heart. And so like ARCS is not in a spot where I don't feel like it's in any kind of turmoil right now. It's just I'm trying my best to take my time.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'll have more to share about it. I'll probably start tweeting about it again. I like stopped tweeting like design stuff as it was live because I don't know, like there were too many of y'all's voices were in my head.
It was chaotic.
Yeah, and so like maybe I might get back to that in a little bit, just kind of share.
It's mutable.
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
You can go read it later if you want.
Yeah. Okay, so you're working on something big that we haven't really talked about.
Yeah,
it's your turn to talk about.
It's my turn. I don't know if I can be as detailed as you. Back in the heyday of the company, there was a project I was working on with David Somerville. That was like before Vast came into my life. I talked to David and I said, if you're not going to let me publish Vast, can you help me design another asymmetric game? So we started working on that. And it was funny because I think about like, I could have done that. I could have just made my own asymmetric game, but that's all right. And so one of the things that grew out of that game was a less asymmetric game called Path, which was an open world adventure game. That was my love letter to the concept of what I thought Magic Realm should be, and not actually how Magic Realm played. I don't know if I've actually really could say I've played Magic Realm.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a powerful enough idea.
Yeah. So back then we were finishing up. Back when we were finishing up Vast, we were looking for another project to do, and we'd looked at all the iterations of like, what became Grimthorn, the kind of asymmetric design, versus what became Path, which was the less like you grew into the asymmetry. and then I mean we're kind of talking about it around the conversation we had when you came up with Oath, and I just kept shelving it because what had happened was the art style for Path was Root, essentially.
Yeah.
Like it was like Kyle said, I don't want to do another fantasy game, which is what it had been at the time, and which made me sad because there was a rule about giant petting sheep to regain health. And so we started reworking it with anthropomorphic animals, and then around that time, so like a year later, 8 months later, you saw it and said, "Hey, I think this is how this came to be." You saw it in his sketches and said, "Let's do it this way." But maybe you'd already had the concept of anthropomorphic animals. I don't know.
I had been working loosely on something that might have animals in it, but not. I don't know. So the version of Root that was called Rule, I think still had the animals in it.
Right.
And I can't remember. I don't know where what the precise initiation was.
Right.
But I feel like it was Kyle's, but I also can't remember.
So anyway, so we ended up using the animals. It's Root now. It's the Root setting, and so I've gone back to it as if it were a Root project, and so like I'm taking the return to Path, return to the open world adventure game.
So some light thematic and mechanical cribbing from Root, clearings,
clearings, vagabonds,
slots. I mean that kind of.
And the nations that are competing. Yeah, it's in a different part of the world though. And then, so what had happened was I was working on Dark, and Dark, I have kind of concerns about thematically, that it wasn't going to appeal to a broad audience, and also the combat was so zero-sum and not very fun because of that, because things would change hands and you'd be like, well, no, I'm just done this game. And so the idea was to take some of the elements from Dark that were working and move them into Path and kind of make a new game out of the two together. So take the common infrastructure and the way that you build things and the way that the PvE parts of it and build those into Path. And so I've rebooted with that. We've had 3 playtests so far. We just had one before I came down here. Had a real good conversation about like what does it mean to be ahead in an open world adventure game, and what does it mean to be. How do you score points in an open world adventure game so that you feel that you're competing with your opponents? And so I think we have this kind of cool, this groovy kind of like, as you do missions for people on the board, you can choose to either improve your character's party, or you can choose to bank that job for points later in the game, or at the end. That's very late in the game. And so we're moving forward on that. It's janky right now. I mean, your starting stats are this, and the enemies are this, and so we have to get those back to meeting each other. But I was enjoying the rhythm of it. I was enjoying like I go here, this person tells me to go get this thing, I go and get that thing. So it's a little bit pick up and deliver with this element of how which nation are you going to invest in, and then I think. So we had talked about how as you get more invested into a nation, you need to have some sort of drag on you.
Yep.
So what we've done is we've made it so all the jobs have 2 components, and it's the thing you have to do to get the job done, and then if you're the leader of that org, if you are in line with that group, the other thing you have to do to finish the job, your additional responsibility. Yep. And that's where we ended up with. I think we have to go a little bit the other direction, that there's also privilege to being with that group. Sure. Yeah. So you get a new follower, you get a new item or whatever. So I'm going to experiment with that next, but after I get some of the jankiness out of it. Yeah.
It's so funny. One of the things that I think when I talk to folks about working at a game company, one of the things about the labor that I try to really emphasize is that it just takes time to make a prototype and to just start. I mean, so like I had the experience on Monday where I said like, okay, I haven't played Arcs in like a month, properly. I mean, I sort of, but not physically. I hadn't played physically in a month, and so I just forced myself to like take out my kit, put it on the table, and then I just had these little Post-its, and I was like, I need to fix that. I need to fix that. I need to fix that. I made a big to-do list, and it took 4 hours of just slowly going through every item and fixing all the stuff, and then reprinting and resleeving. And now, like with the new Arcs branch I'm getting ready to do, I probably have another 4 or 5 hours to do before I'm able to test again.
You need a production assistant.
Well, but it's also an important part of the process because it just kind of reminds you that like
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
making things that have cards and that have a certain number of physical components and all sorts of stuff like that.
And now to get laid out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in general, I will say with regard to Path, I'm excited. I had fun talking to you about it, and it's fun to see it on your table, and you're making some progress on the design.
And momentum. Yeah, I'm already ready for not ready. I have changes to make, but I'm ready mentally. I'm ready to go back and play it again because I want to see the next iteration ready. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I've just been working on my little nighttime projects too. So but we'll show more of those as time goes on.
Yeah, I think there are lots of little projects kind of buzzing around the studio right now. Things that we've designed, that other folks have designed that we're looking at, and we'll be talking more about those as we go forward.
People on the Slack, can you tell me if it's locked up right now? Because I'm frozen on my phone.
Oh, it's because the Wi-Fi down here doesn't exist. You're in a bunker.
My brother also sent me a text saying I can't get to it anymore, so I got nervous. But okay.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
I think we should be good. All right. Anything else?
No, it's been a pleasure working with you. Or continues to be.
Yeah, that sounds scary.
The building's sinking.
Yeah, a live exclusive. Deck of the Titanic over here. We will be back to our normal design stream schedule starting next month.
Yep.
So first Tuesday of the month, you'll be with us hopefully. We will be talking about more things on both Path and Arcs. We'll probably have updates to share there.
Do you want to talk about anything about Oath or Arcs? I'm sorry, Oath or Ahoy expansions.
Sure. We have ideas for both. The Oath expansion is in a fun spot. I was hoping that was going to be my summer project, but because for a lot of reasons,
quality.
Well, for a lot of reasons, I wanted to give Arcs the extra time and stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think there's a very real chance that in about 3 or 4 weeks, I will be directing at least some of my time to the Oath expansion.
Yep.
I spent a lot of time in Gen Con talking to people who had played a lot of Oath.
Yeah.
Including one person who had been playing about 30 games. And the Tribunal, which is a binding promise site in Oath, was in their game for 4 or 5 games in a row. And they used it to mint a third currency that would be linked to the player identities and could be traded for multi-game deals, like a promise token.
Yep.
And it got me so excited. And just talking to people about what Oath was meaning to them as they got 10, 15, 20, 30 or 30 more plays in, just started fueling all kinds of ideas for how the expansion is going. So the expansion right now is a giant pile of ideas that need sorted through, tested, iterated on.
Right.
I'm very excited about it. But I want to get Arcs a little bit more stable. And then Ahoy, we are kind of looking at some options for things that folks want.
I got to sell 40,000.
We have
first.
we never want to get ahead of it, but I think one of the things that we're trying to do as a company is be a little bit faster on the uptake, so that if the game gets a great response when it's in y'all's hands, we can be ready for more content. And if that doesn't happen, then no trouble. I mean, I'm so happy with how Ahoy turned out. Do we have one around here?
Yeah. It's a little bit more on Rails than Root, so I'm interested to see how we will expand it then.
It's a little like the factions. I mean, the game is operating at like half of the rules. Weight. Right. So that creates certain kinds of limitations. But I think there's room in the system, and there's some real fun, silly stuff that can happen in the game.
Cool.
Cool. That's it. So we'll be back with you all at the beginning of September. School will be starting. Exciting.
Can't wait. I mean, yes. They'll be starting.
And if you have not checked out the pre-order for Ahoy, check it out.
Yeah.
You can find it on our website. You can access the rules within the TTS mod. The rules will also be posted to BGG within a couple of days, and the TTS mod should be live now. We will be posting about those things on our social media.
They're working on the rules right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's what the Slack message was that I responded
excellent.
to. Yeah, Nick is uploading it. It's a BGG, so it's slow.
Yeah, well, and also like a BGG upload will take a few days. Like, so even if we get the upload in today, it could be a day or two before it pops up. If you want to read the Ahoy rules right now, go to the TTS page.
Yeah.
And they are within the mod.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Excellent.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, have a wonderful day.